Stop scrolling. Focus on your screen. I'm about to show you 4 chess pieces, not the standard pieces you play with. 4 strategic positions that Machiavelli used to identify which rulers possessed genuine intelligence, and which only appeared intelligent until crisis revealed their stupidity. Each piece represents a different level of strategic thinking, a different depth of calculation, a different form of dangerous intelligence that determines whether you survive or die when everyone is playing for your position. Piece 1, the pawn. You see one move ahead, react to immediate threats, survive through compliance. Piece 2, the knight. You see 3 moves ahead, maneuver around obstacles, exploit unexpected angles. Piece 3, the rook. You see 5 moves ahead, control entire lines of attack, dominate through calculated positioning. Piece 4, the queen. You see 7 moves ahead, operate on multiple dimensions simultaneously, shape the entire board, while others are still planning their next turn. Choose one piece. Right now. Don't pick what sounds most impressive. Your instinct is revealing how many moves ahead you actually calculate when your survival depends on strategic thinking. Comment your choice. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Do it before I expose what it means. Because what I'm about to decode will reveal whether you're dangerously intelligent or just dangerously confident about intelligence you don't possess. I'll also discuss how each piece counter each other. You'll be surprised in the end. Machiavelli watched Borgia operate at queen-level intelligence. When Borgia needed to pacify the Romagna, he didn't just conquer cities. He hired Ramiro de Orco to terrorize the population, then executed Ramiro publicly to redirect hatred away from himself. That's not 3 moves ahead. That's 7. Move 1, hire Ramiro. Move 2, Ramiro terrorizes the region into submission. Move 3, population submits but hates the tyrant. Move 4, execute Ramiro. Move 5, population celebrates the tyrant's death. Move 6, Borgia appears merciful while maintaining the terror's results. Move 7, future rebellions decrease because potential rebels remember what happened to the last person who opposed Borgia. 7 moves. Calculated before move 1 began. That's dangerous intelligence. Machiavelli coded this calculation depth system into the prince, hidden in case studies, disguised as historical analysis, buried in advice about military campaigns. But the pattern is there. 4 levels of strategic intelligence, 4 depths of calculation, 4 types of minds that Machiavelli identified in Renaissance courts. Today, I'm revealing his intelligence hierarchy. Comment your piece choice now, because once you understand which calculation level you operate at, you'll see why some problems feel impossible and why certain people seem to solve them effortlessly. Let me take you to Florence, year 1512. The Medici family was returning from exile after 18 years. Spanish troops were marching toward the city. The Republican government, the government Machiavelli had served for 14 years, was collapsing. Piero Soderini was the gonfaloniere of Florence, the elected leader, the man responsible for defending the Republic. Soderini faced a choice: surrender to the Medici peacefully, or resist and risk the city being sacked by Spanish forces. Machiavelli advised Soderini to resist, to arm the citizens, to make Florence defensible enough that the Medici would negotiate rather than attack. Soderini refused. Why? Because Soderini was calculating at pawn-level depth. He saw the immediate problem: Spanish troops approaching. He saw the immediate consequence of resistance: possible violence and destruction. He reacted to the present threat by choosing the option that avoided immediate pain: surrender, exile, peace. What Soderini didn't calculate, because he couldn't see past move 1, was what would happen after surrender. The Medici returned. They purged the Republican government. They arrested Machiavelli. They tortured him. They dismantled every institution Soderini had built. Soderini died in exile, his legacy destroyed, his life's work erased, because he couldn't see past the immediate threat. Machiavelli, calculating at Rook level, had seen 5 moves ahead. Resist now, negotiate from strength, maintain some republican structures, preserve political options, survive with influence intact. But Soderini couldn't see it. And pawn-level intelligence meant he walked directly into a disaster he could have avoided if he'd calculated 1 or 2 moves deeper. This is what Machiavelli understood about intelligence that most people miss. Intelligence isn't about being smart. It's about calculation depth. You can be educated, articulate, knowledgeable about history and philosophy, and still be strategically stupid if you only calculate 1 move ahead. Conversely, you can be uneducated, rough, even illiterate, and be dangerously intelligent if you naturally calculate 5 or 7 moves deep. Strategic depth is its own form of intelligence, separate from IQ, separate from education, separate from eloquence. It's the difference between masters and victims. 400 years later, chess grandmasters would prove this scientifically. Garry Kasparov doesn't calculate faster than average players. He calculates deeper. He sees the same board, but he sees 7 moves where average players see 2. That's not IQ. That's strategic depth. And Machiavelli identified it in 1513, long before anyone formalized the concept. You chose your chess piece at the start of this video. That choice revealed your instinctive calculation depth. Now let me decode what each level means. We'll analyze each piece, each intelligence level, each calculation depth, each strategic ceiling. If you chose piece 1, pay attention to the first section. If you chose 2, 3, or 4, watch all of them. Because understanding all 4 levels means you can identify which depth your rivals calculate at and exploit the gap. Let's begin with the first level. Piece 1. The pawn. 1 move intelligence. If you chose the pawn, you calculate 1 move ahead. You see the immediate problem. You react to the present threat. You choose the option that solves the current crisis without calculating what happens afterward. This isn't stupidity. It's reactive intelligence. Your brain prioritizes immediate survival over long-term positioning. When threats appear, you respond. When opportunities emerge, you take them. When choices present themselves, you pick the one that feels safest right now. Machiavelli wrote about pawn-level rulers throughout The Prince, usually as cautionary examples. In Chapter 3, discussing King Louis the Moutontin of France's invasion of Italy, King Louis was brought into Italy by the ambition of the Venetians, who desired to obtain half the state of Lombardy by his intervention. I will not blame the course taken by the king, because wishing to get a foothold in Italy, and having no friends there, seeing rather that every door was shut to him owing to the conduct of Charles, he was forced to accept those friendships which he could get. Translation. Louis calculated 1 move ahead. I need to enter Italy. Venice offers alliance. I accept. He didn't calculate move 2. What happens after I'm in Italy with Venice as my only ally? Move 2 was predictable. Venice used Louis to conquer territory, then turned on him. Within years, Louis was forced out of Italy, having gained nothing and made permanent enemies. Pawn intelligence. React to the immediate opportunity. Don't calculate what happens next. Piero Soderini made the same mistake in Florence. Immediate problem. Spanish troops approaching. Immediate solution. surrender and avoid violence. He never calculated move 2. What happens to me after I surrender? The answer was exile and destruction. But he couldn't see it, because his calculations stopped at the immediate crisis. In modern terms, you're the executive who solves today's problem without considering how that solution creates tomorrow's disaster. The person who takes the job offer with the highest immediate salary without calculating career trajectory. The leader who makes the popular decision without thinking about consequences 3 months later. You maintain survival through immediate adaptation. As long as you can react faster than threats develop, you survive. Your strength is decisiveness. Pawn-level thinkers don't get paralyzed by analysis. They see problem, they choose solution, they move. While others are still calculating, you've already acted. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in pawn-level intelligence. Reactive thinking creates predictability, and predictable opponents get trapped by anyone calculating even one move deeper. King Louis XIII reacted to immediate opportunities throughout his Italian campaigns, made allies when offered, attacked when challenged, retreated when threatened. Every decision was logical in the moment. Every reaction made sense given the immediate circumstances. But Ferdinand of Aragon was calculating 3 moves ahead. He created situations where Louis's immediate reaction would lead to long-term disaster. Ferdinand offered Louis alliance against Venice, knowing Louis would accept the immediate advantage. Then Ferdinand secretly negotiated with the Pope, knowing this would isolate Louis politically. Then Ferdinand withdrew from the alliance at the exact moment Louis was overextended, knowing Louis would have to retreat with nothing gained. 3 moves, calculated before move 1. And Louis walked into every trap because he couldn't see past the immediate decision. By 1504, Louis had been completely expelled from Italy. Not because he was stupid, but because he was calculating at pawn depth against opponents calculating at knight and rook depth. If you are a pawn-level thinker, your survival depends on forcing yourself to calculate one additional move. Don't ask, what solves this problem right now? Ask, what solves this problem right now and doesn't create a worse problem immediately after? That's knight-level thinking. Just one move deeper. But that extra move is the difference between walking into traps and avoiding them. Machiavelli's advice for reactive thinkers appears in Chapter 3. Men should either be treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries, for heavy ones they cannot. Translation: stop reacting to immediate threats with immediate half measures. Calculate one move deeper. If you're going to act, calculate whether your action solves the problem permanently or just postpones it. One move deeper. That's the upgrade from pawn to knight. If you chose piece 1, if you instinctively gravitated toward immediate reaction, toward solving present problems, toward moving without extensive calculation, then comment below, I calculate like the pawn. Claim your piece. Because understanding that you think one move ahead means you can train yourself to see 2 and avoid every trap set by knight-level opponents. Piece 2. The knight. 3. Move intelligence. If you chose the knight, you calculate 3 moves ahead. You see the immediate problem, the consequence of solving it, and the position you'll be in after those consequences unfold. This is tactical intelligence. Not just reactive, not fully strategic, but tactical. You maneuver. Your brain naturally maps short-term cause and effect. When threats appear, you don't just react. You consider how your reaction positions you for the next threat. Machiavelli operated at knight-level intelligence throughout most of his career. He wasn't a strategic genius, but he was an excellent tactical operator. In 1500, Florence sent Machiavelli to negotiate with King Louis XIV of France. Florence needed French military support against Pisa. Machiavelli calculated 3 moves. Move 1. Offer Louis a small amount of money for military aid. Move 2. Louis would accept because he wanted Florentine diplomatic support. Move 3. Florence would get military support without committing to expensive permanent alliance. 3 moves, short-term tactical success, and it worked. Louis provided troops. Florence made progress against Pisa. Machiavelli returned having accomplished his diplomatic mission, but Machiavelli didn't calculate move 4 and beyond. He didn't see that offering Louis minimal payment would insult him, that Louis would remember Florence as cheap and unreliable, that when Florence desperately needed French support in 1512, Louis would refuse because he considered Florence a bad ally. Knight-level intelligence, tactical success, strategic failure. This is what separates Knight from Rook thinking. Knights win individual battles. Rooks win campaigns. In modern terms, you're the executive who negotiates a great deal for this quarter, without considering how it affects next year's negotiations. The entrepreneur who solves immediate business problems brilliantly, but doesn't build long-term market position. The leader who wins tactical victories that don't add up to strategic success. You maintain power through superior maneuvering. While pawn-level thinkers are reacting, you're positioning. You're 3 moves ahead of immediate threats. Your strength is tactical adaptation. Knight-level thinkers are hard to trap because they see traps 2 moves before they close. They maneuver around obstacles instead of crashing into them. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in knight-level intelligence. Tactical thinking without strategic vision means you win battles in the wrong war. Francesco Gonzaga was a knight-level military commander, the Marquis of Mantua, commander of Venetian forces during the Italian Wars. Gonzaga was tactically brilliant. He maneuvered armies expertly. He won numerous battles through clever positioning and calculated retreats. In 1495, at the Battle of Fornovo, Gonzaga commanded the army of the League of Venice against King Charles VIII of France. Tactically, Gonzaga performed perfectly. He forced Charles to abandon his baggage train. He inflicted casualties. He maintained his own army's integrity. Gonzaga claimed victory. And tactically, he was right. But strategically, Charles VIII escaped Italy with his army intact. The strategic goal, preventing French return to Italy, failed completely. Within years, Louis XV invaded Italy again, and this time stayed for decades. Knight-level thinking, tactical victory, strategic irrelevance. Gonzaga calculated 3 moves ahead brilliantly. But he needed to calculate 5 moves to understand that battlefield victory without strategic consequence equals decorated failure. If you are a knight-level thinker, your survival depends on extending your calculation depth to 5 moves. Don't ask, how do I win this immediate conflict and position well for the next one? Ask, how do I win this immediate conflict in a way that shapes what future conflicts even exist? That's Rook-level thinking. 2 moves deeper than knight. But those 2 moves are the difference between tactical success and strategic dominance. Machiavelli's advice for tactical thinkers appears in Chapter 14. A prince ought to have no other aim or thought, nor select anything else for his study than war and its rules and discipline. For this is the sole art that belongs to him who rules. But then, critically, in Chapter 21, nothing makes a prince so much esteemed as great enterprises and setting a fine example. Translation: tactical victories are necessary but insufficient. You must calculate how tactical success builds strategic reputation that shapes future conflicts. 3 moves is good. 5 moves is survival. If you chose piece 2, if you instinctively gravitated toward tactical maneuvering, toward calculating short-term consequences, toward positioning for immediate follow-up, then comment below. I calculate like the knight. Claim your piece. Because understanding that you think 3 moves ahead means you can train yourself to see 5 and convert tactical victories into strategic dominance. Piece 3. The Rook, 5-move intelligence. If you chose the Rook, you calculate 5 moves ahead. You don't just see the immediate problem and its consequences. You see how solving the immediate problem positions you for conflicts that haven't emerged yet, but inevitably will. This is strategic intelligence. Not reactive, not tactical. Strategic. You control lines of future conflict. Your brain naturally maps medium-term cause and effect across multiple domains. When threats appear, you're already positioned where those threats must travel to reach you, and you've prepared responses before the threats finish forming. Machiavelli achieved Rook-level thinking later in his career, after his torture and exile forced him to analyze why he'd failed. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote his analysis of Cesare Borgia's conquest of the Romagna. This analysis demonstrates Rook-level calculation. Borgia's 5-move sequence in the Romagna. Move 1. Hire Ramiro de Orco to pacify the region through terror. Move 2. Ramiro terrorizes the population into complete submission. Move 3. The region is pacified, but the population hates the tyrant. Move 4. Execute Ramiro publicly in a gruesome display. Move 5. The population celebrates the tyrant's removal while remaining pacified, and Borgia appears merciful while maintaining all the benefits of the terror campaign. 5 moves. Calculated before move 1 began. That's Rook-level intelligence. Borgia didn't just solve the immediate problem, an unruly region. He solved it in a way that positioned him perfectly for the next 5 problems. Maintaining order, avoiding popular hatred, appearing just, deterring future rebellion, and consolidating legitimate authority. Most rulers would have stopped at move 2 or move 3. Pacify the region. Done. Borgia calculated 5 moves deep and understood that short-term pacification without long-term legitimacy equals eventual rebellion. In modern terms, you're the executive who restructures the company in a way that solves current inefficiency while positioning the organization for markets that don't exist yet. The entrepreneur who builds products that create demand for future products in the roadmap. The leader who solves today's crisis while establishing systems that prevent similar crises for years. You maintain power through strategic positioning. While knight-level thinkers are maneuvering for the next battle, you're controlling which battles occur and when. Your strength is strategic inevitability. Rook-level thinkers make outcomes feel predetermined because they've positioned all the variables before anyone else realizes conflict is coming. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in Rook-level intelligence. 5-move calculation assumes variables remain stable for 5 moves. When circumstances change unpredictably, 5-move plans collapse. Cesare Borgia calculated 5 moves ahead throughout his conquest of the Romagna. Every campaign was strategically positioned. Every alliance was calculated to serve multiple future purposes. Every elimination was timed for maximum strategic impact. And then Pope Alexander VI, Borgia's father, died unexpectedly in August 1503. All of Borgia's 5-move calculations assumed his father would remain pope for at least 5 more years. That assumption was reasonable. Alexander was only 72, healthy, active, but he died. And Borgia's entire strategic position collapsed because move 1 through move 5 all depended on a variable that changed unpredictably at move 2. Within months, Borgia went from master of central Italy to prisoner in Spain. Not because his intelligence was insufficient, but because 5-move calculation can't account for variables that change at move 3 when you're already committed through move 5. Rook-level intelligence is brilliant until it's not. If you are a Rook-level thinker, your survival depends on building contingency plans at every move. Don't just calculate, moves 1 through 5 lead to optimal position. Calculate, moves 1 through 5 lead to optimal position if variables remain stable. But if variable X changes at move 3, I pivot to contingency sequence B. If variable Y changes at move 4, I pivot to contingency sequence C. That's queen-level thinking. Not just deep calculation, dimensional calculation across multiple possibility branches. Machiavelli's advice for strategic thinkers appears in chapter 25. I hold it to be true that fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but that she still leaves us to direct the other half, or perhaps a little less. Translation: 5-move calculation is powerful. But unpredictable variables, fortune, can destroy any single 5-move sequence. Build multiple sequences. Don't commit to one line of attack. 5 moves is excellent. 7 moves with contingencies is survival. If you chose piece 3, if you instinctively gravitated toward strategic positioning, toward calculating multiple moves ahead, toward controlling future conflicts before they emerge, then comment below. I calculate like the Rook. Claim your piece. Because understanding that you think 5 moves ahead means you can build contingency branches and survive when variables change unpredictably. Piece 4. The Queen. 7-move intelligence. If you chose the Queen, you calculate 7 moves ahead across multiple dimensions simultaneously. You don't just see one strategic line, you see multiple possibility branches. You calculate the primary sequence and the contingencies if variables change at moves 2, 3, 4, or 5. This is multidimensional strategic intelligence. Not linear, not single line. Dimensional. You shape which futures are possible. Your brain naturally maps long-term cause and effect across multiple parallel scenarios. When threats appear, you've already calculated how to respond, whether they arrive at move 3, move 5, or not at all. You're not positioned for one future. You're positioned for 5 possible futures simultaneously. Machiavelli encountered queen-level intelligence only once in his career. Pope Julius II. Julius II didn't just calculate sequences. He calculated which sequences other rulers would calculate, and positioned himself where all their calculations led them to need him. In 1508, Julius formed the League of Cambrai, an alliance of France, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, and the papacy against Venice. Most observers saw this as straightforward strategy. Venice was too powerful, so major powers allied to contain it. But Julius was calculating 7 moves across multiple dimensions. Primary sequence. Move 1. Form league against Venice. Move 2. Crush Venice militarily. Move 3. Venice sues for peace. Move 4. Divide Venetian territories among league members. Move 5. France becomes dominant in northern Italy. Move 6. Form new league against France. Move 7. Expel France from Italy entirely, while the papacy retains all territorial gains. But Julius also calculated contingency branches. If France refuses to join, calculate different 7-move sequence using Spain as primary ally. If Venice wins battles, calculate 7-move sequence where papal neutrality lets both sides exhaust themselves. If Spain demands excessive territory, Calculate 7-move sequence that pits Spain against France before territorial division. 7 moves on the primary branch. 7 moves on each contingency branch. All calculated before move 1. That's queen-level intelligence. And it worked exactly as Julius calculated. Venice fell. France became dominant. Julius immediately formed a new league, the Holy League, against France. By 1512, France was expelled from Italy, and the Papal States had expanded significantly. 7 moves. Multiple dimensions. Perfect execution. In modern terms, you're the executive who builds corporate strategy with contingency plans for 8 different market scenarios. The investor who positions portfolios to profit whether markets rise, fall, or stagnate. The leader who shapes which problems emerge by controlling the systems that generate problems. You maintain power through dimensional control. While Rook-level thinkers are controlling single lines, you're controlling which lines exist. Your strength is strategic inevitability across all futures. Queen-level thinkers don't just win. They make it impossible to lose because they've calculated every possible outcome and positioned themselves to benefit regardless of which one occurs. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in queen-level intelligence. 7-move calculation across multiple dimensions requires cognitive resources that humans don't possess indefinitely. Eventually, you miscalculate one branch, or you miss one variable, and the entire dimensional structure collapses. Pope Julius II calculated brilliantly from 1503 to 1511. His 7-move sequences worked perfectly. His dimensional strategy expelled France from Italy and expanded papal power to heights not seen in centuries. But in 1511, Julius miscalculated one variable: King Louis XIII's willingness to call a church council to depose him. Louis, frustrated by Julius's betrayals, threatened to convene the Council of Pisa, a gathering of cardinals that could potentially remove Julius from the papacy. Julius hadn't calculated that branch deeply enough. He'd assumed Louis would play within normal political boundaries. When Louis threatened the papacy itself, Julius's entire dimensional strategy faced a threat he hadn't prepared contingencies for. Julius survived, barely, by calling his own rival council, the Fifth Council of the Lateran, and using his superior political positioning to neutralize Louis's threat. But it was close. One miscalculated variable nearly destroyed 7 years of perfect dimensional strategy. If you are a queen-level thinker, your survival depends on recognizing your cognitive limits. Don't calculate 7-move sequences across 10 dimensions. You'll miscalculate. You're human. Calculate 7 moves across 3 critical dimensions. Master those 3. Ignore the others. The most dangerous queen-level thinkers are the ones who choose which dimensions matter and calculate those perfectly, rather than trying to calculate every possible dimension and failing at all of them. Machiavelli's advice for dimensional thinkers appears in Chapter 25. It is better to be adventurous than cautious, because fortune is a woman, and if you wish to keep her under it, is necessary to beat and ill-use her. And it is seen that she allows herself to be mastered by the adventurous, rather than by those who go to work more coldly. Translation: 7-move dimensional calculation is powerful, but don't let perfect calculation paralyze action. At some point, you must commit to one sequence and execute decisively. Queen-level intelligence with knight-level decisiveness. That's the combination that conquers. If you chose piece 4, if you instinctively gravitated toward dimensional strategy, toward calculating multiple possibility branches, toward shaping which futures can exist, then comment below. I calculate like the queen. Claim your piece. Because understanding that you think dimensionally means you can focus your calculation on critical dimensions and avoid cognitive overload that leads to miscalculation. The intelligence exploitation cycle. You now know your Machiavellian calculation depth. The pawn, the knight, the rook, the queen. But here's what Machiavelli understood that separates survivors from victims. Every intelligence level has an exploitation strategy. Pawns are exploited by creating immediate crises that force reactive decisions leading to long-term disasters. Knights are exploited by sacrificing short-term losses to control long-term positioning. Rooks are exploited by changing variables unpredictably mid-sequence. Queens are exploited by creating complexity overload that forces miscalculation. This is how intelligence levels fight each other. King Louis XIV, pawn, was exploited by Ferdinand of Aragon, knight, who created immediate opportunities that Louis reacted to, leading directly into strategic traps. Francesco Gonzaga, knight, was exploited by Pope Alexander VI, rook, who sacrificed tactical battles to control strategic positioning. Cesare Borgia, rook, was exploited by Julius II, queen, who changed the papal variable unpredictably, collapsing Borgia's 5-move sequence. Understanding your calculation depth is step 1. Understanding how opponents exploit your depth is step 2. Defending against exploitation is survival. If you are the pawn, your strength is decisive reaction. Your weakness is predictable response to immediate stimulus. Your defense, force yourself to calculate one move deeper. Ask, what happens after I solve this? If you are the knight, your strength is tactical maneuvering. Your weakness is winning battles in the wrong war. Your defense. Before maneuvering, ask, what war am I fighting? Connect tactics to strategy. If you are the rook, your strength is strategic positioning. Your weakness is sequence collapse when variables change. Your defense, build contingency sequences at every move. Never commit to single lines. If you are the queen, your strength is dimensional control. Your weakness is cognitive overload leading to miscalculation. Your defense, choose 3 critical dimensions. Master those. Ignore the rest. Machiavelli watched every intelligence level fail throughout his career. He documented pawns destroyed by tactical opponents. He analyzed knights defeated by strategic positioning. He studied rooks collapsed by unpredictable variables. He observed queens miscalculating from complexity overload. Every intelligence level can be exploited. Every calculation depth has a counter strategy. The question is, are you defending against your exploitation pattern before opponents use it? The final challenge. Comment your piece one more time. I calculate like the pawn. I calculate like the knight. I calculate like the rook. I calculate like the queen. Claim your piece. Because this isn't an IQ test, this is a calculation depth diagnostic. Machiavelli wrote The Prince to teach rulers how to survive against opponents with superior intelligence. I'm decoding his intelligence hierarchy to teach you the same survival strategy. Like this video and subscribe to this channel. Because in the next video, I'm revealing the master technique Machiavelli identified. How to fight opponents calculating deeper than you without developing their calculation depth. The pawn strategy that defeats knights. The knight tactics that collapse rook sequences. The rook positioning that neutralizes queen dimensional control. The asymmetric intelligence warfare that lets inferior calculators defeat superior strategists, if they understand the exploitation patterns. Machiavelli didn't just study intelligence. He survived being the knight in a court of rooks because he understood how to fight above his calculation weight. And in the next video, I'll show you how to do the same. Until then, study your calculation depth. Identify opponents calculating deeper than you. And remember, in the game of power, the most dangerous mind isn't the one calculating deepest. It's the one that knows how to exploit every calculation level above and below their own. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. But the second method, the one Machiavelli never wrote, is to count how many moves ahead they calculate before committing. Count carefully. Your survival depends on it. I'll see you in the next revelation.